People's Food Co-op is your neighborhood grocery store owned by 12,000 of your friends and neighbors. They serve high-quality foods, natural products, and support local farmers, featuring organic produce, meat and seafood, house-made bakery, deli, and more. You don't have to be an owner to shop. Learn more at www.pfc.coop. Prevention is the key to a healthy life. That's why Gunderson Health encourages you to learn about vaccines and how they can help you and your loved ones stay healthy. Vaccines protect against preventable diseases and viruses by boosting your body's defenses. Visit GundersonHealthFacts.com to learn more. Driftless Music Gardens presents People Fest, coming up August 10th through 11th, a music and camping extravaganza set in the beautiful rolling hills of the Driftless region of Wisconsin, the best mini fest in the whole Midwest. Learn more, buy tickets, and on-site camping at driftlessmusicgardens.com. We connect with Tim Carbone of Railroad Earth. We get into lineup changes, a new album, side projects, and more. Railroad Earth will be playing People Fest at the Driftless Music Gardens August 12th. You can find more conversations on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is Lacrosse Local.
When we got started, we felt like there was already kind of had some quick momentum. So the ball started rolling quickly when we started the band. We weren't playing big venues or getting large crowds. You feel that we, as musicians and as artists, we felt like we had something, and we just built upon that. And then the crowds came along, and our fans are pretty much a large part of the whole thing. I mean, they kind of impel us a little bit because they seem, in large part, they get the music and it affects them, and the feedback is part of the whole thing. It was pretty organic and remains organic. And we've run into some pretty heavy problems. We've had band members leave. We're on our third bass player, but like nobody else has left unless they passed away, and which is what happened with our dear friend Andy Gessling, who was one of the founding members. Passed away from colon cancer back in 2018. So now we have, what are we going to do? He was a really important part of the band. He was a multi-instrumentalist. When I say multi-instrumentalist, you underline that and put it in bold, because he played everything, pretty much. If you blew through it or it had strings you could strum, he played it and played it well. He wasn't like, hey, look at this noise I can make on this thing. No, he'd pick it up and shred the hell out of it. So when he passed, we had to make it was like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to, this is absolutely going to impact the sound of the band. So we had this other much larger thing besides the monthly grind of touring and all of that's just something you always have. Now, what are we going to do? So we tried some folks out to help us get through that period without losing too much momentum. We hit upon Matt Slocum, who we loved playing with the band, and we wound up bringing him on full time. He's an amazing keyboard player. He's played with lots of people. He's played with Colonel Bruce Hampton and Currium Rescue Unit, and plays with Jimmy Herring, and he plays with Mike Robinson, the Chris Robinson's brother from the Black Crowes, plays in his band. And then we found the other Mike Robinson. And he's our multi-instrumentalist now. He plays guitar, banjo, and pedal steel. And so we've had it going on, and then the pandemic hit. And we were just starting to we literally, the last couple of gigs before the pandemic, were like, holy smokes, this band's sounding really good now. Then the in-between happened. So 2 years went by, and then when we got back together again, we got back on the horse, and we're now starting to get up to, we were cantering for a while, and then we were at a modest gallop and with spurts of like absolute thoroughbred running. So we're feeling good about what's going on.
The last album, which came out in 2022, was your first studio album since Captain Nowhere in 2017. Was this an album difficult to put out during that time, or was this kind of a welcome back of sorts?
We made that record in 2019, and then we held off on releasing it because however you do that in an unprecedented situation like a global pandemic, and how are you going to release an album and somehow make it successful? How do you go about doing it when you can't go out and perform to promote it. And so the decision was made to not put it out during the pandemic. Now I know there were a lot of other bands that they put out records, and they put out several records, or one or two or whatever. They used the time to do that, but we chose not to do that. I felt we should have put it out. And so I'm thinking like, oh man. And so then, you're waiting 2 years to put a record out, and you're not in that space anymore. So yeah, I love the record. It's a great record. We got to work with Anders Osborne producing it, and it definitely has a different feel. And we did get to have Andy on the record on one song, because he wrote a song called Driftin', and he tracked the original demo of it in my studio, and we just used those tracks to build upon. So it was kind of cool. It was, I mean, for me, that was the kind of the connecting tissue, and I felt really good that we were able to do that.
You've been passing through the Driftless here in Wisconsin with the band The High Hawks, which also features Chad Staley, who lives here but also owns La Crosse Distilling Company. Has the band always been through this area, or did Chad and kind of the Driftless draw you out here?
Well, the High Hawks drove me out there. The first time I was in La Crosse, and I've been in La Crosse several times now, but was to perform with the High Hawks. Actually, I love that little town. It's pretty unique in my opinion. And the High Hawks are like a whole nother thing. God, I don't know. It's kind of isn't any other band out there like it. It's sort of like a ramshackle meeting of the minds between the Rolling Stones and the Flying Burrito Brothers or something. And high energy, yet really good songwriting, great. And the performance, people love it. To say that we're exuberant performers is probably an understatement. And so it's a good show, and everybody has a good time, and we love playing with each other. It's really fun, and it's artistically solid.
Mm-hmm. So coming up here this next weekend, you're going to be headed to Hillsboro, Wisconsin. Railroad Earth will be playing People Fest at Driftless Music Gardens. I was there for Bonfire. It's just a great venue. You can bring the kids. What can people expect from your shows? You're also pairing up with a great lineup.
We're going to crush it. I mean, we're a bit supersonic at this point. We're having a good time. Everybody's having a blast on stage, and we're like kind of reveling in the holy crap. Look what this sounds like, because it's adding top-notch musicians like Matt and also Mike Robinson. Not only are they top-notch musicians, but they're also excellent humans. It's the whole package. People should expect to see a band in its prime and at its height. I feel like where we're at now, as great as the band was with Andy, we're a different band now. So you just have to, you're just going to have to move on with that and embrace it. And we have, so the Schaefer's songs they're the connective tissue between the past band and the new version of the band. So that's always going to be the same. People that love the songs, which is what mostly people fall in love with, is the songs and how they're presented. And we have, it's hard to describe, but I feel like when we play for our fans, the fans are part of what we're doing. It's all sort of a circular spiritual, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or anything, but I feel it. It's like this give and return thing that happens when it's unique for me. Other bands I've been in have been great bands, but that particular relationship with the fans and the audience is different for this band than any other band I've been in.
So you guys are also joining Leftover Salmon, Yonder Mountain String Band, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. Some of those folks even play with. You see Heatbox, Chicago Farmer. It's going to be a great event, but also what's coming up for you guys?
Well, I've had a couple of really interesting things happen recently. I have been friends with the great Lenny Kaye for a number of years now, but this past Christmas, I got a friend of mine was putting on a Christmas benefit locally, and he asked me if I could maybe corral Lenny. Lenny Kaye is the guitar player in the Patti Smith group, and he also was the person who curated the very first. Actually, he curated all of them. I thought it was only the first one, and then he corrected me. He's curated all of the Nuggets collections of the psych rock music from the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
And, they originally put out on Elektra. He's written a number of books, really great books. I guarantee you can go through any of your more historical records, like reissues of famous artists, and you look at the liner notes and you'll see that they're written by Lenny Kaye. He's a great guy. He's an amazing writer. At this point, he's one of my best friends. I call him on the phone and he says, "Oh yeah, well, I wrote a Christmas song," and he sang it to me a cappella over the phone. I was like, "Get your ass down to the studio right now, and we're going to track this in." And we did, and we made a really fun and cool and kind of desperate sounding Christmas song called Santa's Knee. And that's basically the story of a shopping mall Santa, and how he always looks forward to the day when he can put on the costume and go out and be with the kids. And then he goes home to his apartment where he has this threadbare Christmas tree with a couple of lights on it, and he has a few drinks. And it was great making it with him. And I have this other side project that I work with that I'm also really happy to work with. This is a band called the Sea to Sparks with my good friend Lou Rogai, who's also an amazing songwriter and an amazing musician. Just really like kind of almost like rare once in a lifetime, like I can play every instrument and I sing great and I write amazing songs, and he's just a great guy to hang with and is super productive. So we wrote a song called Gathering Song, a Christmas song back in 2000. It came out in 2018 or 19. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But so now we're releasing the double-sided 45 RPM record with Lenny's song on the front, and Lou and his son play on that as well as I, and I produced it. And then the Cedar Sparks is the B-side. So I'm super stoked to do that. I'm also playing, just funny how things happen. One of my favorite songwriters in the world is a guy named Walter Salas O'Mara. And he's in a band called The Silos, who I've always loved. They were on RCA for a couple of records back in the 90s. Yeah. And they put out Walter has put out a bunch of other records with The Silos. And I fell out of touch with them, and I just wound up reconnecting with them back a couple of months ago. We're starting to work together, and I'm going to try and get us out. I did a duo show with him, and it worked. It was great. We both had a great time. I'm going to start doing some work with him. I'm very stoked about that. I have a new song that I wrote with played all the instruments on during the pandemic that I'm going to release shortly, called The In Between. We have a new High Hawks record that's coming out probably in spring of 2024, and we love making the first record, and I think it came out great. But this record is a whole nother thing, man. It's really, really good. So I'm very, very excited about it.
So do people pretty much find you? You're involved in so many projects. They can basically, Google your name, check out Railroad Earth. They can also, check out the High Hawks.
Pretty much that's about it. I'm writing a memoir, which is taking, I've never written anything before, but it's way more work than I thought it was, but I'm actually enjoying it. So I hope to have that out and published probably sometime, maybe in the fall or sometime next year. But when the cool thing about writing a memoir is it makes you remember things.
That's nice.
And I'm 66 years old, so I can use that.
get to revisit a few things in your life. That's awesome.
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.